way, and we've got a surprise for everybody at the end of this. Dr. Reed, in his efforts to want to understand this creature, after he learned that it was alive, and on the third day is when he found this, he opened his freezer up to re-examine it, and he got the surprise of his life because it sat up and screamed at him. And yeah, well, he did. And he was very, very frightened at first, and he left hurriedly, shut the freezer door, went in the house, called his best friend Gary and said, "Gary, our problem is bigger than we thought." Okay. So Gary came over, and together they decided, okay, let's take a look at this thing. Gary was very cautious. He wanted to hit it and beat it and protect himself, but Jonathan convinced him, put down your weapons. Let's just see what happens. So he opens the freezer up, and it screams again. As it turns out, he later determined that it probably was the bright lights, the overhead lights, that was causing it to scream. It apparently was sensitive to the visible spectrum, like these kind of lights that. It's I think, a nocturnal creature, and it probably was extremely sensitive. And I think that's one reason why some of these creatures are seen with black eyes, because they have some kind of membrane over it to protect their eyes from bright lights. That's what I think. I don't know for sure, but I think some of you people who saw the alien autopsy video, they pulled these eye coverings, these membranes off their eyes, and they looked like sunglasses, only in the form of a contact lens. Well, then I must be right. You want to switch back over to the PC projector for me real quick? Thank you. Okay. Another thing that I think is really important to verify that this creature is organic and alive, other than just the blink video itself. This picture was taken by Dr. Reed, and it just so happened that it produced the red eye effect in the photograph. And as most people know, anybody who's taken, just about anybody who's taken photographs, family photographs, whatever, when you have a flash that's close to the lens and you take a picture of somebody, it's a common problem. You get red eye effect. And I think, and it also happens, though, when you have a bright light source that happens to be at the right angle to be reflected off the retina and directly into the lens of the camera. And that's what happened in this case. And as far as I know, only organic creatures show the red eye effect. If this had been some kind of mannequin or rubber dummy or whatever, this effect could not have been produced. So, and just so you people can see that it does happen. I'm showing here that you can see it happens in animals too: cats, rabbits, dogs, as well as young kids and adults. I mean, it's a common occurrence with organic creatures, no matter what they are, animal or whatever. So I think that lends a lot of credibility, again, going back to that photograph, to the fact that this was an organic living creature. This was I think one of the earlier pictures taken, and again, Dr. Reed didn't know early on that this creature was alive. It unfortunately surprised him in that regard. But in any case, after he got through with the initial shock of this creature being alive, he went back out to his garage and decided that maybe he could communicate to it in some way, shape, or form. So he opened the freezer up and he let it crawl out. And it did. It eventually, the wound on its head had started to heal already, and he had dressed the wound because I think he felt that it was, for me, I would probably have done the same thing. This wounded creature, and it's got this gaping wound with this tissue hanging off of it, and I would have just wanted to put it back in place because I'm a neat person, and I would have done that. And that's what he did. And he cleaned up the wound and stuff because he didn't want to get blood all over everything. But in any case, the wound had started to heal, and it started to recover, apparently. It climbed out of the freezer, and over a few days, he was able to communicate to it. He attempted to, anyway. I'm not certain he ever understood exactly what was going on, but while he did that, he managed to record it. Now, he took some audio of it, and I'm not going to play it for you right now. I'm going to let him do that. He took some audio of that communication session that he had with it. It's maybe 10 minutes long or so. And he took audio initially because his camcorder was bigger, and this he felt was less intrusive, and he actually did record it with video later on. However, that video unfortunately ended up disappearing. along with a lot of other evidence that he had. But he managed to keep this for whatever reason. When they took his evidence, they left the audio tapes behind. Now, maybe they didn't think there was anything of consequence on the audio tapes. I don't know. But he managed to keep it. And I'm going to have him play this later on. I think you're going to be really astounded by what you hear. It's pretty impressive. I've got some soil sample analysis stuff that I want to show you real quick, and then I'm going to turn this over to Dan McAvoy and let him do his stuff. Back to the PC projector real quickly, please. Yeah. This is a report, and I'm not going to explain to you what this report means. I'm just showing you that this physical report exists. We received this from Jaime Maussan. He took this to a gentleman named Dr. Zohar Gutierrez, who's at the Nuclear Medicine Hospital, and he's got all the details of who this person is, what his credentials are, where he's at. If anybody wants to know the details of that, they can contact me, and I will put them in touch with Jaime Maussan if you have a reason to know. This is a 2-page report, and it contains various printouts that, these are just printouts. They don't really explain what they are. However, we do have a video of Dr. Gutierrez describing what he feels. And that's the digital videotape, guys. I know that was the more complex of the ones, but if you could play that, I may have to. Let me go to page 2 real quick while they're queuing that up. Again, these are not really meaningful reports to your layman, but I just wanted to show you that they do exist, that we did run these tests, and then we'll let these guys hear what Dr. Zohar Gutierrez had to say. One other thing I want to mention is that the investigation process is not a point in time. It is a process. A lot of people think you can just dump this stuff out all at one time. Well, we don't have the resources or the manpower or the money to do that. It's just not possible. Thank you. Turn the lights down real quick, please. It says, after analyzing soil, bark, and plant samples taken, for those people who can't see, because this is in Spanish, from the surrounding area of the obelisk object, we found that there was, in fact, a definite increase in natural spectral radiation levels, great enough to leave detectable altered traces, but not enough to cause permanent biochemical damage. Except for sensitive plant fungi. Interestingly, we also found high concentrations of natural elements such as copper, zinc, and gold. These findings match and corroborate the conditions and statements made by Dr. Reed. My summary is that definitely, without any doubt, a very abnormal and unusual event with high energy took place in this area. Okay, you can stop that tape. Now, Jaime Maussan went further to explain to me, he'd spoken with Dr. Zohar Gutierrez himself, and he said that the interesting thing was that these occurrences only happened near the obelisk, and they took soil samples from several different places. They took soil samples from neutral spots far away from the encounter site. They took soil samples, plant samples, core samples from trees in the area of the obelisk in the immediate vicinity, and then they also took some samples from the creature area. And what they found was that these occurrences only happened in the obelisk area. And to them, that was definitive proof that these weren't just something that was present throughout the whole area there. It was only where the obelisk was, and they were high indications of high energy. Well, Jonathan doesn't know exactly what happened to the obelisk, but he went back the next day with his friend Gary, and they brought chains and a flatbed, and they were going to try to drag this thing out of the forest, but unfortunately it wasn't there. He brought the chains because when he tried to move it, it wouldn't move. I mean, when he was in the forest, he slapped it and he tried to move it, and it was basically pinned to its location, and it would not move. So at least by himself he couldn't move it. And so they thought, well, maybe if we can drag it onto the flatbed or something, I don't know how we're going to do this, but Gary was kind of persistent and he wanted to do it. But when they got back out there, it was gone. And in fact, the weird thing that he felt was that not only was it gone, but it